Okay, this is a new 447 HPC2. This is for Jeff. It's going to Ohio. And Jeff, I'm going to give you the free Stryker mic that I was seeing on the last couple orders I was giving away. So you're going to get this free, no charge to you. It'll be in there with the radio in the box. So just needs a, what does it need? A AAA, I think, or something? Yeah, one AAA. So you can decide to use it or not, but it's free to you. And the one little tip of advice I give on these is if you do want to use it, I would recommend taking it apart and pulling the foam that they put in there up against this grill back a little bit. You can pull it back, and it actually made the mic sound better. I didn't have any luck with these as far as the adjustments. They say that there's a tone and a volume, but I'll be honest, I mean, I turn and turn and turn these things, and they don't really change much of the sound or the volume, so they kind of sound how they sound. I wouldn't say they sound terrible or anything, but you know, I'm not a noise canceling mic type of operator, so I don't run noise canceling mics, so I don't necessarily really like any of them. But I don't run noise canceling mics. I never really have. So the basis of me is basically just I run my radios a certain way, and I run the KPO microphone with all my radios pretty much. So for your radio, I'm probably just going to use this Road Devil. This is kind of what I use here on the bench. My KPO mics I use for my own personal radios and stuff. So this one is brand new, and obviously we know now that there's some lookalikes out there and whatnot, but these are, in my opinion, the better model. I mean, number one reason to go with these guys is exactly what it says there. That's huge. So that's your money worth right there. And you know, whatever some of the other guys might do or whatever, that's what they do. But 3 years is huge on any radio. So they stand behind it. This has been around for a while. It's a tiny little radio, but it really packs a punch. And even if you're not in America and you just like AM and FM, these are good radios for the multi-norm. It does have an option for that, which I have shown on other videos in the past. So it's not just a this is all it's going to be kind of radio. If you do it a certain way, it will work in the multi-norm setting as well, which not really what it was designed to do, but since it does it's great for that market too. But I don't think it's really, no one over there really. I think I've sold one of these to Europe, and I know he was happy with it. I really do, because I got some feedback on it. But you know, regardless of that, they are really nice radios for what they are. Only because I got it on and it's kind of sitting here right next to me. I'm just showing my old base station here that I got from a friend of mine. I really like this old basic model. It has the meter is a 497, which it looks pretty good. I mean, you know, I don't mind it. Obviously the power scales are a little funny on it, but he did send me some replacement meters, and they got lost in the mail, which, man, it's just a shame, you know, because stuff like that, it's irreplaceable. So hopefully it'll turn up someday. I filed like a missing package thing, but so far no luck. But yeah, so I have that on, and it's pretty quiet these days. At least today, there's not much going on the radio. But I mean, for simplicity, these things were great. This is the President model. I know they made a Unit N one later, but this is the older one. So it's just pretty much just dead quiet. So I have a Mako V5000 up too now on my tower. I no longer have the Shooting Star beam. I went away from that, and I'm actually really happy with what I ended up with. So anyways, enough about that. Let's get on with the radio here for Jeff, and we'll hopefully get it ready to ship off to you by tomorrow. Maybe, I know you wanted priority mail. I'm going to see if I can get UPS to take it. If it's going to get there any sooner, then I'll try to get them to take it today, because I know they're coming, because I'm getting some more Stryker stuff coming in. One thing I like about these radios is the board is very, very similar to the board in this radio. And these radios have really good AM audio. These are really underappreciated, I think, now for what they are. I have a few of these new that I really probably will never sell. I don't know, I really like these radios for what they are. I prefer the CRT. 9900 V4. I actually bought one of those new from Europe because I just wanted one. I have one already, but I wanted one new in the box, never used. So it is what it is. You know, you miss things when they don't make them anymore. I kept a Lincoln 2 Plus for the same reason. People really underappreciated that radio now that you can't get them really new. Maybe there's a few guys selling them still new, but obviously they're discontinued. So some of that stuff you don't appreciate it till it's gone. So I'm sending the PC file in right now. That's why it says PC. This radio, I have a feeling that they're probably in the works of a new model of this radio. I don't know if they'll keep it looking the same and maybe call it like a HPC2. Obviously, it's not confirmed by Stryker or anything like that. It's just something I feel like could be in the works, but I really don't know other than I get a gut feeling. I like these older radios a little bit more because they're less restrictive on certain things, I guess is the word is a good word to say. But you know, a lot of guys are moving on from some of the older models for the new models, and that's fine. I mean, I understand, but you know, it's one of those things. So what I did here is on your squelch, let me get this flipped over. I put on your squelch, when you turn it up, it'll show a level. It'll go all the way up to like 36. And then off is obviously off. That way you know when it's off anyways. And I put the radio in FM only because it's easier to hear the volume. So I put that in place. And something about SWR on startup, I thought it said. I don't know what that means, why that's there. There's an option in the programming, and I'm not sure if I don't understand it completely, but it says something like SWR. Okay, I think that means on key up, so I'm assuming that that's what that means, and it's usually always checked on. So the SWR Protect is set on this at 3.0, and there is a Roger beep in it. Now I don't have that setting turned on, so if you wanted it on, the problem with this radio is it's always going to stay on, so you have to turn that on in the software, and I don't think that you probably want a Roger beep on, and that's why I didn't turn it on. So the color is actually white. For whatever reason it looks pink. I don't know why. So I'll change the color here and try to make it more of a different color. Yeah, the white looks pink. So we'll go with red, and then I'm going to dim it down some. It goes up to 31. I'm going to leave it at about half scale like that, so that way it's not full brightness. You really shouldn't run any of these kind of radios at full brightness. I think it's just better for it. So let's get on with it here. I'm just going to set it up how I set these up. They got really good modulation and stuff, so they have good audio and good swing and the whole 9 yards. So I'll be back with that. Okay, so the factory on this comes in at just under 2 watts. Low power, and swings up somewhere, I don't know, 10 to 20 is what I've seen. There's a lot of overshoots on these radios. That's why they have such high modulation. I mean, even from the factory, you see a lot of overshoots on the scope. That's why you get those huge peak numbers. And you can see that overshoot occasionally goes way up past the screen. And that's why, you know, like it just flashed 33 for a minute there. So you got to understand how radios work and what they're giving you already. That's your NPC that they call it. You're overshooting. So then again, this is just a factory design. So all the way up it's about 11 watts. Let me back that down a few clicks, that way we can look at it a little bit closer. Maybe, yeah, that's better. So we're at about 11 watts, and then you can obviously see a little less overshooting now. There's still some there. And I've lowered the scale a little bit, so it's harder to see it, but you know, 11 watts, and it's swinging up 60 plus, so almost 70. So I'm going to align this thing and get it set up a little bit better. FM, it's almost 50 all the way up, and all the way down it's probably about the same. It's hard to turn these down because the knobs are small with one finger, so yeah, about 2 watts. So I'm going to set it probably about a half a watt on low power AM and about 8 watts maximum, and then whatever FM comes out to, the high power will be 50. Okay, so we're in FM. That's the deviation now, about 4.1. It came out of the factory about 3.65, so a little bit more. Okay, so the minimum power can only go to 1, so that's okay. We'll deal with 1. Half a watt's kind of super low anyways, but I understand some guys like that low power, but this radio doesn't give that to you. So all the way up it's a little over 8, all the way down it's going to be about 1, so that's okay. We can make that work. So I was just kind of throwing that out there. Half a watt, I didn't really know if it would go that low or not, so 1 is about the minimum. Okay, so here's our setup on this one. So we got our oscilloscope adjusted. Actually, I need to come down just a little bit. That's good enough there. So now we're going to run the tone. Now we can see that's some heavy modulation out of this there. Very heavy. So let's see about maybe just a tad bit more. You can really go crazy with it and pinch it off and all that stuff. So this is RMS right now. It's 8 times the carrier RMS. It's too much. There's 6 times. That's actually would be acceptable on this radio. So 5 to 6 times. So if we stop that, just remember that let's take a quick peek at that. 100%, 200%, 300%. So we're somewhere up there in the high 200s, which is what this radio should do. It's very heavily set up that way from the factory. You want to say they kind of lock it down, because they kind of do, but it's just a different design how they've done it. I don't think the Quad 6 can do this too. That's why a lot of guys like them. So if you go to the high power setting now, it's not going to be as clean. So the trade-off is that's what you're going to get. So I'll show that, and I'll kind of show you where's the optimal range to run it. If you're not gonna run something with it, the design of this radio was obviously low input carrier, high swing, a lot of modulation. You know, at your 8 watt mark, we're probably going to be flat top and look really bad. It just kind of looks strange anyways. So it's not terrible, but you know, this isn't the design of the radio, is to run it at like an 8 watt carrier really. So it'll still swing pretty good like this and have some good top end power, but I technically wouldn't recommend running it like that. So let's back this down to about middle of the road. And again, it's kind of difficult on these because the knobs are like for kids when it's upside down and stuff. They're small. So let's see here, about 4 maybe. We'll kind of see what it does at 4. I'm just curious. I'll level that up some and run the tone. Yeah, so even at 4, we're still looking really good. So I would say about no more than 4. Don't worry, I'll kind of show you where that is on the scale when we get there. I'm going to get the radio flipped around, and we'll take a quick peek at that. Okay, so on the radio, the halfway mark on the RF power, or I'm sorry, the 4 watt mark is halfway for what I've set it for, but you have your little dots here, so you got 1, 2, 3, so it's about right on the 3rd one. That's your 4 watt mark. If you're keyed up, obviously this is on my dummy load, so it might be different on your antenna, but if you're keyed up, you're around the signal, you're on the number 1 there. That's about where it's sitting. So again, if we modulate that, that's still a high level of audio, but we're not flattening out or anything like that. So, and you can see at 4 watts, we're going up there to 20 almost done, sometimes on average, so that's pretty good. And then we'll come over here and take a look here. Now we can see quite a bit of signal, but everything is pretty low. So, and we're pegged out here, so a lot of audio. So I'll come back with the microphone plugged in. We'll take a look. Okay, so now we're back. and we're still at that 4-watt mark. And when we talk, you can see here on the spectrum analyzer how it looks. It's got a lot of audio. It's not super like aggressive, but it still has a lot of audio. So, and then on the peak reading meter, anywhere from 4 watts carrier up to like 50, 60, it just kind of depends. So, you know, but you'd rather have a lot of modulation than have a higher carrier, maybe have a little more top end power. So that the audio is really what matters on AM more than dead key and you know, that kind of stuff. So the audio will cut through a carrier night and day difference. So, you know, guys running high carrier with constricted audio, you'll slice right through them like a hot knife on butter. Again, over here, you know, you can see at times that we get an overshoot, which is those really big increases that aren't very maintained, but you know, that's the design of the radio. So when you see those higher peak numbers, that's the reason, that's what's happening. So when you have a little more controlled power and it's kind of doing its thing, then you don't see as big a numbers or big peaks on the oscilloscope, I guess. You know, that's what I'm looking for. So that's kind of what it's doing there. Hello radio, hello radio. So when the radio heats up like it is now, they are a little off frequency. Unfortunately, when they're not hot, they stay on frequency better. This is an AM FM radio. It's not really that big of a deal. If I could adjust it, I would, but there is no adjustment in these, so that's just part of the radio. No one's going to know any difference anyways. It's AM or FM, so we'll just call it what it is. We've been dealing with that for decades on radios. Some radios you can adjust, the ones that you can, obviously we would do that for you, but this is not one of them. So if we turn that RF power down all the way, there's our 1 watt carrier right there. And then, you know, these are obviously where it really overshoots, because one going to like 30 on the peaks or something is kind of ridiculous, but the radio does that. So I can show that. So aside from just looking at a watt meter, it's sometimes, you know, try to understand actually what it's doing and why it does that. And it's flat out the design of the radio. So, you know, obviously you can see here we're going off the scale. Just try to bring it down, try to control it a little bit. But as you can see, when you get those high peak numbers on the meter, that also means that you're like taking up pretty much the whole screen. And not every word that I say does that. So yeah, try to understand from both standpoints why radios do what they do. And the ones that are controlled and we don't have any control over that control, they don't do this. So, you know, there's certain radios that people don't like for those reasons. And then this would be one that people like because of the high level audio. So if you turn it up all the way, it's not going to hurt the radio or anything, and you probably will still sound good, but you know, at 8 watts or so, you do get a little bit more peak power out of it. So hello radio, and you know, it looks pretty good there too. All in all, on the spectrum analyzer where it really counts, it looks good in all 3 phases with the RF power at 1, 4, or 8. So if you don't need as high a modulation, then yeah, turn the RF power up, or just simply back the mic gain down. Either way, there's really no wrong way to run this radio. I just like to kind of show it in different facets of how you could run it. So it's pretty much done. I'll hook it up to the antenna. I doubt there's anything out there, but we'll take a look. So here it is on the antenna. Again, this is the Mako V5000. It's at about, I don't know, 66 feet in the air or something like that. Again, people that will complain about radios and their S meters and how they read, if that's a problem for some guys, I would say just go buy an older made radio from the 70s, 80s, or 90s. You know, there's plenty of those used models out there. The problem with it is half of them are probably all screwed up. Every radio's receiver is designed different. Obviously, the board that's in this radio, like I showed in the beginning of the video, is made by a certain company, and their receivers have always been a certain way, even the older generation boards like what's in this. So you're getting the same kind of receiver on a lot of different models from certain generations of radios. They're all kind of the same. Same thing with like these guys when they made radios, Uniden made radios, and you know, Cybernet made radios and all that stuff. You know, receivers were usually pretty well, you could count on them being a certain way. So, you know, if you're used to running a certain kind of radio, it probably doesn't bother most guys. If you're used to running like a radio like this, probably a radio's receiver like this, you wouldn't, it would take some getting used to. Once you get used to it, you forget about the other radio and how it is. If you still use that other radio, then probably not. So, you know, everybody's radio preference is different. I like these radios. I always have. Always wanted to run one mobile. I never have, but I definitely will be keeping one for myself if they ever do go discontinued, because who knows if the new model will be, you know, as good as this model. You just don't know sometimes. So it kind of is what it is, but they're very nice radios for small, fit in a lot of places, kind of power little radio with good audio. I think the receivers always sounds good on these. You know, you got a couple different functions of noise blanker there that you can run, and you got echo and all that stuff on the front. You got a talkback on the front, so you know they are performers. So, but that's why I say they make different radios for certain operating styles. So go to bed. I know he heard me. But it's real quiet out there today. It's one of those days there's no activity at all. So if you got good local scene, then the radio hobby continues on. We got quite a few locals here. It does get quiet at times though, but if you don't have locals to talk to, then sometimes the radio can get awfully boring if you depend on Skip. Alrighty, we'll get this one wrapped up for you. 73, and sorry for the few days delay on it, but we'll try to get off to you today if I can with UPS.